for lesson 2's homework, we're going to start to apply our zero product property to solving our quadratic equations. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that there are no parentheses left. Then the second thing is we're going to make sure we're set equal to 0. So that first one satisfies both of those. So the next thing we want to do is we want to factor and solve. So we have a trinomial here. So we'll make our boxes, first term top left, last term bottom right. We'll multiply first by last, so 1 times 36 is 36, and then it needs to add to a 15x. So we need two numbers that multiply to 36 and add to 15, so that would be 12 and 3. So as we factor here, we got a GCF of x times x is x squared, x times 12 is 12x, x times 3 is 3x, and 12 times 3 is 36. So now normally, when we had factored, we had been finishing at this stage here. But now, since they're set equal to 0, we want to take each parenthesis and set it equal to 0. So x plus 12 equals 0, we'll subtract the 12 on both sides. X equals negative 12. And then we'll subtract the 3 on both sides. X equals negative 3. So in the second one now, no parentheses, but we're not set equal to 0. So I want to keep this 2x squared. I want to make sure the left side stays positive. So I'm going to subtract the x squared, add the x, and add the 32. So I'll subtract the x squared, add the x, and add the 32. So everything on the right side cancels. So 2x squared minus x squared is x squared. 11x plus x is 12x. And then there's no partner for the 32, so we are just plus 32. And now we're equal to 0. So now we'll factor x squared and 32. Multiply first number by last number. So it multiplies to 32, adds to 12. That's going to be 8 and 4. So as we fill in our boxes around, we end up with x plus 8 and x plus 4 equals 0. So same deal. We'll set each parenthesis equal to 0 and solve, and we end up with x equals negative 4 as one answer, and we end up with x equals negative 8 as our second answer. So as we keep going here, normally this would be great for this first one if it was equal to 0, but it's not. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly multiply the x minus 5 and the x minus 6 in boxes. And now we get x squared minus 11x plus 30 equals 2. So we basically just took our factored form, formed it into our trinomial, because we can't subtract the 2 from parentheses. So we have to multiply it out in our trinomial. So now we are able to subtract our 2 to actually set it equal to 0. So now we can continue with our factoring. So x squared, 28. So multiply 1 by 28, you get 28, and adds to negative 11. So multiplies to 28, adds to negative 11 would be negative 7x, and negative 4x. So GCF, you get x minus 7 minus 4. So x minus 7, x minus 4 equals 0. Set each parenthesis equal to 0. In this case, instead of subtracting on both sides for both of them, we're going to end up adding. So that's going to give us an x equals positive 7 and x equals positive 4. For the last one, we're not set equal to 0, so we're going to subtract the 18 on both sides. 6x squared minus 12x minus 18 equals 0. Now you could actually go ahead and just factor from this stage, but your numbers are fairly large. So what would make our life a little bit easier is if we took out a GCF of a 6 first. Now again, if you had just continued to go through, your solving would still end up working out. But you really should GCF that 6 first. And now we can put what's left in the parentheses into a factoring problem. So this is really like a factoring completely type of problem. So what multiplies to negative 3 and adds to negative 2? That'd be negative 3 and positive 1. So GCF, x, negative 3, positive 1. We end up with 6, x minus 3, and x plus 1 equals 0. Remember, if there is no variable on the outside, we don't have to worry about that 6. So the only thing we have to do then is set each of the parentheses equal to 0. So we subtract 1 on both sides, get x equals negative 1. We add 3 to both sides and get x equals positive 3. 7x squared plus 2x equals 0. So this is not difference of two perfect squares, even though it's a binomial. Actually, what it is it's a GCF. The GCF here is x. So we end up with 7x plus 2 equals 0. So there's no more factoring we can do. Now, this time we do have to set the outside equal to 0 because it has a variable. And then we set our 7x plus 2 equal to 0. So we subtract our 2 on both sides. 7x equals negative 2. Divide by 7. And again, if it doesn't work out nicely, just keep it as a fraction. So x equals 0 and x equals negative 2 over 7. Same thing over here. Take out our GCF. They all have an x. So x and then x squared minus 16. Binomial. Now this one does have additional factoring. Okay, it's the difference of two squares. X squared is perfect, 16 is perfect, and there is a minus sign in the middle. Square root of x squared is x, square root of 16 is 4. So we keep our x squared, or excuse me, our x out in front, and then our parentheses are x plus 4 and x minus 4. So now, you get x equals 0, you have x plus 4 equals 0, and x minus 4 equals 0. So we'll subtract our 4 on both sides, you get x equals negative 4. Add our 4 to both sides, and you get x equals positive 4. So another hint too is how many answers do we have? 1, 2, 3. Your biggest exponent in the very beginning should tell you how many answers you're going to have. So if you notice, most of the biggest exponents were 2, so we had 2 answers. In this case, we had an exponent of 3, so therefore we had 3 answers for this one.